Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, Rachel. Good evening to you. Welcome to Aquarius Rising. And I am so happy to have with me again from Australia the lovely Rachel Vaughan. How are you, Rachel?
Lovely to see you, Shanti. I'm very good, thank you, Dylan. A bit cold here. My feet are a bit numb, but apart from that, I'm all right.
Likewise. And I was actually looking because I've got a jacket exactly the same color, and I was really contemplating wearing it, and even with the same color top underneath.
Oh, that's funny. That's
So
beautiful. Okay.
apparently
That would have
that
been
was
interesting.
so weird because I was looking and thinking of wearing that this morning. I thought, no, hang on, it is cold, but if I wear two layers, I might get be too warm. It was like, okay, we both got the memo.
Yeah.
But it's lovely to see that we were thinking on the same wavelength anyway. So
Well,
welcome. How are you and how have you been? We did a show with you about a month ago and I really, really enjoyed that. How's it been with you since then? And what's happening in Oz?
well, the usual corruption everywhere. I think I don't know if I mentioned last time that we've had some confirmation on the Beaumont case from the Major Crime Department in Adelaide that
Why, yes.
they investigate because of the suppression order and a particular inquiry into state wards going missing and dying, which is interesting. So, I mean, with that sort of like fueled my fire because the fact that they've acknowledged that after 18 years of fighting and pushing and ridiculous, them digging up stupid places where none of my father's victims are because they've got patsies that they're trying to blame this stuff on. It's been really interesting. I feel very validated, which is wonderful. And I've been watching some of the crazy thing that's been going on. Lots of corruption sort of being exposed. At the same time, there's a lot of corruption still continuing and getting worse. It's a hell of a place to live, Australia. Um,
Right.
but on a more personal note, I've had some wonderful validation. I've been sharing information regarding ley lines for, well, gosh, for about a year now. I've been putting it out there publicly that I can see them and the people that I teach in my courses can see them. Well, now we have scientific backup that I found. Just happened to be watching a video, something on YouTube, and this guy started mentioning cryptochromes. So cryptochromes are magnetosensors, which are heavily expressed in the human retina. And this is how uh, insects and birds and animals uh, navigate the world through ley lines. They follow the ley lines, the magnetic lines around the Earth. That's how they travel from one country to another. And we've known that for a very long time. Well, now it's proven that we have them. Human beings have them. We have the CRY2. It's a cryptochrome, a flavoprotein photoreceptor, and so there's an amazing article in the National Library of Medicine regarding this by Foley, Geiger, and Rupert. And I'm just finding that's just been absolutely awesome. It's just awesome because it backs up. We have Original Australians have been talking about being able to follow and see song lines and also known as dream lines. We've had the American Indians talking about spirit lines and dragon lines that they've followed for millennia. And the proof is there. And what's
And
really
it's from
interesting,
Leylines.
yeah, so we can see
It's
ley
cool.
lines.
It's just
So
called something different. Wow, that's incredible. And I think what you're saying is so amazing because it just shows again how us humans have been dumbed down, disconnected on so many levels. And as we see the way the world is going right now, as well, and has been going with the use of our lovely cell phones, when people are just walking around on their cell phones all the time, so disconnected from the world and our abilities, our true God given abilities, and the way that we're supposed to see the world, right? And the things we're supposed to be seeing. And that's really going to elevate us and elevate our consciousness again and give us rise to climbing this ladder because we know we're living in a fallen reality currently, right? So by rediscovering the gifts, our natural God-given, God-given gifts of which you speak, that's going to take us back to where these are going to be the things that actually save us, right? Save us from whatever it is this new world order is trying to take us into. So it is really beautiful, and I love to hear what you're saying, especially when you as you say, you see the ley lines, spirit lines, dragon lines, whatever, all, the ancient cultures are talking about. And I mean, I have no doubt that's also when we just look here in Africa, South Africa especially, with the Bushmen and the Khoisan, they were also seeing these things. I was trying to think now, I was trying to recall what it was that they call it, and I don't remember offhand, but I definitely remember reading about how they also see, call it the ley lines. And then they follow that. That gives them their instinctive, natural abilities to do whatever it is they're needing to be doing as well. Wow, that's incredible. That is really, really incredible. But before we go further, I want you just to recap on what your spiritual gifts have been. Because as we know by now, people like yourself are taken into the system and heavily abused, yes, which is horrific, but also you guys generally have amazing gifts. And I think that is such an important thing, because I think there's a misconception that when people like yourself have been taken in, and it's like these things are implanted in you. It's never implanted in you. You are born with these gifts. The dark brethren, or the Lucies as I love to call them, they're super smart, yes. They're very uncreative, but they are smart, so they know who the gifted children are. And what they do is they really corrupt your gifts and make you, or try and manipulate you guys to work for them, as opposed for God and for the natural gift that you are to the world. So maybe you can just tell us a little bit about what your natural gifts are.
So my God-given gifts are, I can remote view, I can see the future, I can predict for other people as well. I can see and read auras. I can see the ley lines. I can pick up on past events too. I can pick up on things. This is with help from spirit guides and my higher self. I can pick up on things like, I've read for clients and I've been able to see where their tattoos are under their clothing, because it shows up in the aura. I diagnose illness. I don't go into the medical intuitive stuff too often, because it's rife with issues with, everything medical has been tied down to, you've got to have a certificate for this and a certificate for that. But I can pick up on what causes problems in people, because it shows up in the aura. So, for instance, cancer will show up a lurid sort of fluorescent green. Scars, surgical scars, will turn up an ugly yellow. I don't know how to describe it, except for it's ugly. It's not supposed to be there. That's not to say that surgery isn't important and necessary at times, but it's something that I would avoid unless utterly unavoidable.
Because the body is designed to heal itself at the end of the day. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I have had the experience of being able to get rid of attachments to make them no longer existent, which is rather wonderful, because you can send them back to source and they can't be that individual source energy that they were before. So that's their greatest fear. So once you learn how to do that, and it's really not difficult, it's the gold dust factor. I think you've mentioned that earlier.
Yes.
Yeah, once you do it a few times, they tend to leave you alone. They don't like to muck around with people who've got those sorts of abilities.
Exactly.
So, I guess to a degree reading minds, because that's what I was used for as a child, but I don't do that without permission because it's wrong. But that was something that I was utilised for as a child. And obviously, my father chose my mother to breed with because she had abilities. Her family had abilities. A lot of the people who end up in these programs, the MK Ultra program, or just in these satanic cults, they get bred in. If the cult needs a particular line, they'll pick up somebody and they'll get handled. They'll get hypnotized, convinced that they're in love with somebody, or they just get veered into it. And then they'll breed with them to bring in whatever trait that they're looking for, whatever they want to breed into the line. Yeah, it goes across the board.
Absolutely. You hear about that so often, I've often questioned in the past, it's like, did your mother not know what was going on? And I think so often, although having said that, there are certainly times when the mother is very actively participating in the abuse as well. But I also feel like that is really part of the manipulation or the control, right? That, I mean, it's very unusual for a mother to hurt her own children. I mean, in the natural events, right? But and I know oftentimes they are, as you say, hypnotized or controlled to actually do things that completely go against their grain, right?
Which they're constantly studying. They want to break that mother-child bond. That is an absolute fascination with the Lucy's, because they despise that love, because it's the strongest love, and because we create life, and they don't like that because they want to destroy life. Everything is inverted, obviously. So, and you see that with the child trafficking, state-sanctioned child trafficking that we have so much in the Western countries. It happens in other countries as well, but it's a little bit more hidden in other countries, Eastern countries. In the Western countries, it's just right out there. You've got child protection ministers who are actually part of the process. They do it openly, and they really target Indigenous peoples particularly for many reasons, not least of all their culture, their knowledge about, the spirit world through things like the Leyline knowledge. And, it was interesting. I was speaking to someone the other day who mentioned that when the colonizers came to Australia, there was a particular area near Pine Gap. And kudos to this person. I can't name them because, but they're a brilliant individual. They pointed out that Pine Gap, which is a facility in Australia that does some very, very dodgy things, was creating a gap between the pineal gland and consciousness. Pine Gap was a very interesting way to look at it. I never thought of it from that point of view before. It was absolutely on the path of this person. I'd love to give them kudos for it, but they don't want to be named. It apparently, by putting in the telegraph wires, they occluded the song lines. And they did it intentionally because the Indigenous Australians were very, very powerful, and they had that was their communication channel, the song lines, and they put in the telegraph lines to occlude it in some way. And you see that all over Australia, where they put bridges in to occlude certain very important spaces where many rivers meet, and light will come into a particular portal crossing, like a ley line crossing. They'll stick a bridge in there so the light never gets in. It's very calculated and very clever. That they're trying to stop the natural energy flow. And I believe that in all, the plan is for a transhumanist agenda then to take over, for robots to take over, and to have a dead planet. But it will never happen. It's their wet dream, but it just won't occur.
Yeah, no, I agree that it won't. And I think that, which is why at the moment, I think so many of us are becoming more and more aware. This really is the time of the Great Awakening. And even though when we look at things that are first awakening, it might be a little bit of a shock and people running around a bit for a while like chickens without heads. I hate that analogy, but that is kind of like what it feels like. So they don't really know which direction and just grabbing on to whatever they can. And that, of course, is also how the Lucy's get their claws into certain beings. But, then more and more people are actually realizing what it's about. We're realizing that, in this truther community, this truther movement, there's majority of stuff is actually not truth at all. It's really just playing into people's fears and telling them what they think they need to know or what they want to hear, and becoming even more pliable in the hands of these guys because they're feeding them a whole lot of crap. I keep saying as well is that we are here to save ourselves. We are here to apply the teachings of Christ and the divine and God, source energy, whatever you choose to call it. There's different names for the same thing. It doesn't make it different. And when we're aligned with that energy, and when we're aligned with the Christ consciousness, there's no ways we can be out of sync. We then know the truth from bullshit, right? And we find the ones that are on the same wavelength, or vibration as we are. And the more of us who realize these things, the easier it becomes. It's like, but really at the moment, there's a few people who are heading and in this direction and who are the trailblazers for that, because it's such uncharted territory, right? This whole satanic cult has been going on for many millennia, and it is disgusting. And for us to actually even make headway through that, I'm pleasantly surprised how far we've come. What is your take on that?
I am absolutely gobsmacked at the leaps and bounds that have been made in the last 4 or 5 years. Well, all this BS has been going on, really intense BS. It has woken a lot of people up. So, I don't interact with people very often that actually watch mainstream news. I very rarely get any information from anybody about mainstream news. I actually saw there's a headline today in the rag that I do get the updates. I refuse to read it, but I get the updates from. I have to keep my eye on what the so-called elites are doing in my hometown of Adelaide. The Channel 10, one of the main channels here, television channels, is going down. So, there's only like 4 or 5 channels in Australia, in my state particularly, so it's going down. So mainstream is going down. Nobody trusts it anymore. Nobody's watching it. They've lost the narrative. It's wonderful to see.
Wow.
My take is that people are waking up massively. And again, because I read auras and I see people's frequency has dropped, just gone up levels. Normally people would take lifetimes to go up a level. I've seen people go up levels in 3 or 4 years, which can take a toll on the physical body. You suddenly can't tolerate alcohol and wheat and lactose and things,
As it should, because these are all the low vibrating things, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So if anybody is watching this has had that experience in the last 3 or 4 years, it's a really good sign. You're actually going up in vibration. But I've never seen anything like it. It's so exciting. I know we're definitely coming into a beautiful golden age, and I 100% believe that, because I've seen so many children of very, very high vibration being born now, and a lot of adults getting to those higher, getting to that Christ consciousness level, that gold soul level and above. En masse, it seems that way for me, because I work with a lot of high level souls. Most people who seek out a reading or do a psychic development course are a high level soul, otherwise they wouldn't do it.
Yes.
I'm lucky. I get to hang around with some really, really beautiful people, but there are so many more of us now than there were before.
Definitely. It's like we're coming out of we're hatching. Little hatchlings. I love that.
Estimate about 5% high level soul frequency in the population. That, in other countries it might be different, but what I was seeing around me 5-6 years ago, now we're looking at about 15 to 20%. That's how fast.
Amazing. I love it. I recall going back to when I started creating my workshops, which has been more than 20 years ago now. And one of my friends, she's actually living in Australia now. And she was one of my first students. And one of the first, I used to wake up in the middle of the night and just get download of information. And it was like, there was no one, I've never been taught what I know by anyone on this earth plane. I don't say I've never had teachers, because one always has teachers, of course, but not in the traditional sense of the word. But I remember just sitting writing, and then I'd look and I go, wow. And I'd say to my students, I had a group of about 6 or 8 students, I said, guys, you got to test this on me. Just test this on me, please. Because it was just understanding how the mind and the body complex work. What is stored within our body at cellular level, how important our emotions actually are, because our emotions are our fuel, and that's the one thing we've been disconnected from, living in this intellectual world, and again with all this technology, and especially men being made to feel like, boys don't cry, and if you do, you're a sissy, or whatever the case might be, and that was especially big in our country as well, with these, you've got to breed this big race of men who don't feel, they just do, and war and fighting and bush wars and killing, and it's just like, oh God, no, please. So it was amazing for me, and she said to me, Chantelle, I still have my notes from then. She says, what you saw then, most people are just starting to understand now. And I went, absolutely. And it's so amazing to know and see that nothing has ever been in vain. I never stopped ever doing what my heart knew I needed to do. And it's so good to know, I mean, when I see people like yourself and a few others as well, most definitely, who've actually been on that path as well. And nothing has deterred us, despite the fact that we've had so much criticism, judgment, that sort of stuff. We know what we need to do. And that in itself, I think, is part of the Great Awakening, right? When you follow your truth and your integrity. Yeah.
Your soul purpose, what you're here for. And that's what I've also seen in the last 4 or 5 years, is people actually finding, why am I here? What is this reason for being? Why did I come here at this crazy time? Why am I at this really high soul frequency? Why do I have all these abilities? What am I supposed to be doing with them? That's one of the number one things that's, years ago, the number one thing that people would contact me for a reading would be, who's my boyfriend going to be? Or how do I meet them? Now it's, why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? How do I help humanity? How do I make this, it's such a blessing, because it's such a, I prefer to do the soul purpose readings for sure.
And that's amazing, because it's like, as you say, they're reaching for something so much higher than just this like third dimensional, am I going to make money? Am I going to be married? How many kids I can have? I know as well, I used to have the same thing, and now it's really, how do I work? I mean, and especially, doing animal communication workshops, especially, because that was one of the things I was born with, hearing the voices of the animals. And just how many people have stopped eating meat over the years, or once they've done those workshops, because they understand it's like, I have the things like, how do I eat something that speaks to me? It just doesn't, it's just in my world, it doesn't exist, and these are sentient beings. And when we're looking, for example, at the slaughterhouse industry, and yes, I know I'm not popular when I bring up this topic, but it's one big fat blood sacrifice. And, and I mean, these animals are so traumatized. When they go, I mean, I researched it, and I always say I had 4 CDs at the time of what these people were doing to these animals in slaughterhouses.
Oh my God.
It is just on another level. I mean, you can imagine when you have these, the slaughtermen who all they do is killing defenseless animals every day. I mean, you lose your soul. So you can become very, very, very violent with something that is so innocent. And so, there's other, absolutely.
What gets to me, I mean, I do eat meat. I was vegetarian for 10 years, and I do feel like a hypocrite speaking on this, because we have got, if we're going to eat animals, we have to bring them up properly.
Exactly.
I was listening to a wonderful woman called Marjorie Wildcraft recently, who was describing how we can all have a backyard, have 6 chickens, have some rabbits, breed the rabbits, give them a good life, make sure that when they pass, it's not sitting in a feedlot listening to their loved ones being murdered day in and day out for months on end until it's their turn. That is horrific. And this is the thing, Shanti, they put those abattoirs and the feedlots on the crossing of really powerful ley lines.
I was going to ask you about that as well.
The screaming, the yelling, the fear, the pain, the horror, the terror of those animals feeds into those ley lines.
And isn't it interesting that all of these places are built on the outskirts of towns, or in places where the general public doesn't have access to? I always say you should send every 5-year-old child there and see what happens in a slaughterhouse. You will see very quickly how kids stop eating meat. And that will end the cycle, because it is that pain and that suffering that these animals go through in the name of ending up on your plate. And you don't even know how many hormones, how many steroids, whatever it is, because what they're doing now is they'll feed a cow hormones and steroids, and within 3 months it's a fully grown animal. And that's now, and of course it goes, as you say, into the feedlots, gets slaughtered. It's all tender because it's not run around and developed muscles and stuff, same as chicken. I mean, chicken should be tough, right? I mean, I know from the farm days, if you can eat a chicken, it's not generally a soft meat. The only reason it's soft is because it's had no exercise. It's been sitting like this, cooped up.
And it's usually only about 3 months old as well.
Exactly.
The meat chicken, I've rescued chickens from meat chicken factories, and they don't live very long because they're so big and heavy. Their bone structure can't hold them up.
Exactly.
It's so sad. But this is the whole desensitization that they're doing, because if we can allow that to happen to baby animals, maybe then we'll be okay with them doing it to baby people. And as we know, that's the whole plan, is that it desensitizes us so that they can do their abortion rituals and they can do all of these satanic rituals, and we're not supposed to bat an eyelid.
Well, my point on that is, it's like Gandhi says, and whether you like Gandhi or not doesn't matter. There's a lot of relevance in what they say, I'm just trying to think now, but we see the spiritual awareness, and I know that's not the word, of a nation by how they treat their animals, right? So when we look at how we're treating our animals, we've got a long way to go. And my point is very simply, as long as we are doing this to their babies, they will continue to do this to our babies. It's a mirror universe we live in. So we've got to realize what it is we're doing, and we've got to realize what it is that we see. And it's up to us to make the change, because when we decide to no longer support that industry, it dies like Channel 10 News.
Yeah.
The industry dies.
Yeah.
Then they stop breeding all these animals for our consumption, and in the most cruelest, harshest ways. It's terrible. Either way, I won't do it. And I appreciate that. Obviously, each person has to come to their understanding at some point in time. But, we have to wake up to the fact that we participate, whether we're knowingly doing so or not. It's like John Perkins. I've interviewed him, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Wow. He was part of, in the early 70s, he wasn't working for the CIA or the government, but he was working for companies that subcontracted for the World Bank and the government and CIA and stuff like that, right? And they were going to third world countries, corrupting their governments, putting them into huge amount of debt so that there is no way they could pay back, so that they can usurp their resources and basically be America's biatch. And Africa is certainly one of them. And we're looking at places like Ecuador. We're looking at places like Asia. We're looking at places like Panama, the Panama Canal. You're looking, Torrijos was the one guy as well. He spoke a lot about, these guys got assassinated because of the canal, which is obviously what they wanted access to. So, and oil. I mean, Saudi Arabia was built up by America. When America built Saudi Arabia up today to what it is, because of their oil resources, they want that. So they kind of, if you guys haven't listened to or read that book yet, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, please do. I'm actually interviewing him again, hopefully on Thursday night this week. And what he says is, it's well and good to look at guys like him who were the con men, basically, and at the governments and blame them. But all of us are participating in this. As long as how many people work for the banking industry? How many people work for companies that belong to the Illuminati? How many people go to work and feed this monster every day? We all have to be accountable. And when we can look around and realize, wow, this is what I'm contributing to. Wow, this is what I'm participating in. And I'm choosing to stop that right now. That's when the world changes. So people like him are out there. I mean, they try to poison him. I mean, he had to have most of his intestine removed because they try to poison him as well. So yeah, I mean, stuff like that. And because, obviously whistleblowers like this are high value targets because they're speaking a truth which most other people aren't. But we all have to realize we are all participating in the system if we are ignorant to what we are participating in. How many people tell me, hey, you do this and you do that? I go, I work for myself. Who do you work for? And, calling us grifters because we have Patreon accounts. I'm going, well, excuse me, who do you work for? Who does your husband work for? Who does your family work for? Are you even aware? Of course, right now we all have to earn money, right?
Thank you.
But
for
who
pointing
are
that out.
you? Yeah,
Been
it's
a
crazy.
bugbear of mine for a while now. So if you've got a truther that goes around bitching at people and calling them grifters because they spend most of their daytime hours bringing out information and they need to support themselves somehow financially. If your truther doesn't have to do that, they're probably getting paid by the government. Or maybe they're lucky enough to have a husband that works and supports them, or a wife that works and supports them, in which case they're beholden to somebody.
Exactly.
It really annoys me. It really annoys me because it's so incredibly stupid. It's just stupid to not realize that you need a roof over your head. I need one too. I understand some people working in certain situations, and we need food security. That's our number one thing. We need a roof over our head and we need food security. And we live in these sardine can housing development places where every little house is, you could walk from rooftop to rooftop. You could walk for miles. Not enough room to grow a veggie patch, not enough room to have animals if you want to have eggs from your chickens or whatever. Nothing like that. What we need is to be in places where we can grow our own food.
Exactly.
And then we are self-supporting.
Yes.
And hopefully we can pay the mortgage, bartering, selling off the food, the extra produce that we create. I can see that coming. I really can. I can see large communities.
That is exactly what we need to be doing, and that's why we need to support our local communities. We need to support our local farmers. Farmers are the backbone of any society. I mean, you're looking at Africa right now, the price we are paying for apartheid, the descendants is huge. Firstly, our farmers are being murdered left, right, and center. Farm murders are horrific in South Africa. Secondly, they've now BEE, which has been installed in businesses. When your business gets to a certain level, as a white business owner, you have to give 51% of your business to an African person. You have to do it. It's law. So, everyone, we can't, there's no way, there's nothing saying, we're getting away scot-free. Everyone, we are now paying the price for our forefathers. And yes, all of us were part of the system. And yes, I'm not saying that we shouldn't do it. We should. Everything needs to be rectified because everyone wants some form of accountability, right? When you're looking at part of the slave trade. But there again, there were not just black slaves. Oh my gosh, when you're actually looking into history, you look at the white slaves and you look at the prisoner of war camps and stuff that was housing white people over the years and the wars and things. None of us got off scot-free. None of us, we just have to get out of this victim-villain mode because at the end of the day, that's the thing that they're banking on. I look at South Africa. We are probably the least racist country on the planet right now. We really are. And yet we are paying that price because of a lot of the time. I'm not saying it didn't exist, it did, and it was horrific. But that was also part of the brainwashing. and part of the divide and conquer that was instilled upon us. If you look at our history, and I mean, it's a long one to go into now, doesn't mean that we shouldn't be rectifying it. We should be. And I'm proud of my countrymen who are rectifying it, because there's a big move to do that now. But you look at all over in the rest of the world, it's 10 times worse there, But
it's everybody pitted against each other, so we're not looking at the people who are actually perpetrating the crimes, which is the top 1%.
Exactly.
And we get all this bullshit about climate change, for instance. Well, who are the companies that are raping and pillaging the earth, people, the animals? They're responsible for that issue, which we know is a non-issue. I mean, I've got someone in the family who's been in weather for decades and says it's all a load of crap. So many people are coming out about it being a load of crap. It's just another way to control.
Up and DARPA, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, the colour revolution won't work either. But obviously they were perhaps part of the testing ground was Africa for
Oh, yeah. We've been their guinea pig.
Hatred.
Exactly. We've been their guinea pig for, if you look at South Africa, although we're considered a third world country, let me tell you, we are as modern as every other South Africa and Namibia, because Namibia used to be Southwest Africa. It used to be part of South Africa. We are the guinea pigs here. Whenever there's new chips and things that need to be tested, new cell phone technology, honestly, our banks, we are super modern. We have everything you guys have, yet we consider the rest of Africa, yes, that's super rural. But you look at Johannesburg, Cape Town, these massive Windhoek in Namibia, these places are all super modern. And why? Because we've been used as guinea pigs since, our cars, super modern. We've got all we have been tested. And the Illuminati did come in here originally, and they have been raping and pillaging. And I'm telling you, half the reason why we are so modern is because we have so much of them living here and, wanting the best out of everything, bringing the European culture here and every other Caucasian culture because it's superior. It's so offensive for me to see how African people in many ways are still treated, in their own country. You have people building these massive houses on the hill. There's a French guy in particular. He's literally built a castle here. And he's, maybe 1 month of the year with the best view, but he has the African people standing guard in front of his castle to make sure that other African people don't rape and pillage. I'm like, what the hell? It's something so demented in society right now. We have to turn that around. We really have to turn that around.
Oh, we will, because that sort of obscene opulence will be rooted out.
It will be.
Talk about putting it out there, making it obvious. Look how much I've got. Look at my ego, my massive ego. I'm better than everybody else because of something, some creation, something that's been built that he probably didn't even have his own hand in at all. Yeah,
exactly.
that paradigm has passed. What they do with the Indigenous in my country is absolutely horrific. The child trafficking, the numbers of, we have a very small population, unfortunately, of Aboriginal Australians, but the number that are represented in the child trafficking industry in Australia is extremely high in comparison to the baseline rate.
Yes.
It's obscene and it's still being carried out. And whenever they want to roll out this or that, digital ID or, whatever it is, they start it on the Indigenous communities. That at the moment, and this has been going on for decades, they won't give them any welfare. They take away any ability for them to eke out a living naturally how they might have done, force them onto reservations, call them missions here, and then they won't give them any of the welfare that they're entitled to because they might spend it on something the government doesn't agree with. So they can try some other experiment on. Oh, and no wonder why they bark up.
Over here as well, especially in Namibia as well, it's like they've taken the original people, pushed them into the corners of the most driest, most barren areas. They don't even allow their hunters to go out and hunt for them. The meat gets shot and it's gets delivered to them. And like
Oh,
they've lost their spirit, you know, because part of these, as you know, the indigenous cultures is, I mean, the fathers take their sons out to hunt, right? That's what they do. And I mean, that's the kind of thing I can be okay with, because the way they hunt is so different to the way that these freaking trophy hunters come here on the back of
yes.
their trucks with their high-powered guns and blinding animals in the middle of the night. And, oh my God, no, 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 no.
It's not
It's
like that.
just, yeah,
It can be
no,
quite a spiritual thing, because in some cultures they actually call the animal in, and
yes.
they believe that the animal actually gives up its life.
That's
And
exactly, yeah, that's exactly what the Bushmen do. They'll do like this fire dance, and they sing and they pray and do whatever, and then the spirit of the animal would then come, and then they know that animal has agreed to be its food, to be their food. And then when they go, that's the spirit that they follow, and they have the ways to do that. But I want to ask you definitely about the ley lines, because I know you're doing a lot with that now. So I'd love to know more about the ley lines in Australia. What are you seeing? What are you noticing? You're doing workshops and courses and things on that as well. So yeah, share with us on that, please.
well, number one thing, they are visible. You can see them. They tend to present, the ones that I see the most frequently are usually roughly about 2 meters across. And when you stand within the ley line, they actually present as a perfect circle in nature. So you'll see this perfect circle against a natural background. When I first started photographing them about 10 years ago, I was really perplexed as to what I was seeing. I have taken photographs from different devices, a handheld camera, phone cameras. The lines still appear. I go back to the same places, take the photographs, they're still there. And what I've found over the last year and a half of teaching these courses is that other people can go out and find them too with their own devices. They do seem to sort of really stand out when you take a photograph. Certain times of the day, dusk and dawn, they seem to stand out even more clearly. Animals will show them to us. One of my course members took the most fantastic photograph of a dingo in a ley line, and the dingo is dead spot right in the center of that ley line. You cannot miss it. And he's staring at my course member, Jim, as he's taking the photograph. And later, I didn't share this because it was such a private thing, but he's allowed me to speak about it. He actually had a fire, and you could see one of the logs looked exactly like a dingo's face in the fire. So
Wow,
he was one with that spirit, with that animal.
it just gave
I've
me chills throughout. Wow. Yeah.
Jim, a standout as far as a course member is concerned, because he also took photographs of an eyrie and eagle nest, and they nest in the crossing, very powerful crossing of ley lines. So again, birds, insects, animals, and us, we can navigate using these lines. Original Australians call them song lines and dream lines. American Indians call them dragon lines and spirit lines. The American Indians, based their medicine wheel, which is a circle, around their song lines or spirit lines. What's really interesting is a lot of this information's been lost along the way. I read a book by a gentleman called Alfred Watkins. This was published in 1925. He had a vision one day looking out over a hill, and he could see all the ley lines glowing like wires across the countryside. So then he wrote a
Wow.
book, and he did his very, very best to point out all of the signposts of where the ley lines are that the Romans and pagans had placed there, or peoples before them. So you've got all these markers, particularly through the UK, but you see them here in other countries as well, and in Australia. One in particular of those markers is the mark trees. Now, a ley line shows itself because plants and trees try to avoid growing within it. The frequency is uncomfortable for them, or they just avoid it. So this is why you get these beautiful long corridors that if you're standing within one, you can see this perfect circle in nature. Tree boughs will go around it. You'll get these beautiful arcing tree branches. When trees do grow within them, however, they are very tortured looking, misshapen. They can actually look like they're spiraling, and they're called marked trees. So in 1925, Alfred Watkins has a whole chapter describing these marked trees. The book that he wrote is called The Old Straight Track. There are also marked stones. a lot of the stones, unfortunately, were sacrificial stones, and that takes me to part of the reason why I want to share this information with people, because dowsers can find them, but you don't need to learn to dowse. That's a technique. It's a wonderful technique, but you don't need to learn it. You can see these things. And as I said before, we've got these magnetoreceptors heavily expressed in the retina to find them. You can go out and find a ley line and you can reprogram it. And the reason why I want to share this, and I have a project with a gentleman called Ben Hawkes, dear friend of mine, called Lay Love Down, www.leylovedown.com. We want to encourage people to go out and sing into the ley lines with positive, loving intent for freedom for the earth from these dark souls.
That just gave me chills. That just gave me chills. Yeah. Explain.
So sacrificial stones, this is where they've been sacrificing people, Shanti, for millennia on the ley lines to program the earth for misery and death and torture. This
Makes
is why
perfect sense.
before, the abattoirs are in the crossing of these powerful ley lines, because they are programming for misery. We can change that. We can actually, this is a way of saving the world, in my opinion. And that's our motto, save the ley lines, save the world. If we can get large numbers of people going out and putting their beautiful positive intent, beautiful high resonance frequencies, 432 hertz, tuning forks or singing bowls, or just intent for freedom, meditate, sing, bring that higher frequency into the lays. We're going to win this energetic war very quickly.
I've no doubt about that. What about ley lines makes it so powerful, and what are they? I mean, I understand it's obviously certain crossings and certain frequencies of energy that interplay with each other at certain places, but maybe explain to the layman about the ley line.
So I'm not a geobiologist, but from what I understand from giants in this field like Rory Duff and Alfred Watkins, it's a magneto expression of the Earth's frequency coming through in, it's like it escapes through. So it's something to do with the tectonic plates and the way that they change, but the ley lines are everywhere. But Rory Duff describes in his book, which is a guide to ley lines, earth energies and vortexes, that there is scarcely a square kilometre on the face of the earth that doesn't have at least one of these lines in it. They are literally everywhere. So it's not just on the fault lines, but it's the magnetic resonance. And in my opinion, it's fifth dimensional. So it's the repository of the Akashic record. It's where souls come in and out. When we die, we go into a ley line and we go to whichever dimension we belong into. When we were born, we come from the ley line into the mother's stomach.
Makes sense.
It's also part of the Earth's chakra, meridian, and soul system. We live on a living planet.
Yes.
So that's it, soul. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. So in your workshops and courses, what is it you teach people to do?
I basically teach them the techniques of being able to find them and being able to ascertain whether or not what you're looking at is actually a ley line. So one fascinating thing that I love to teach, and these are some of the photographs that I've taken and many course members have taken and shared with me, you will get what Alfred Watkins has described in his book, the spirit of the countryside. So in Alfred Watkins' book, it's called Genio Terra Britannia, which is the spirit of the British countryside, which the pagans and Romans used to dedicate their ritual spots to. When the Catholic Church came in and took over, they would use those ritual stones, those mark stones. And every church in the UK is in a crossing of ley lines. They're on the old Roman pagan sites, and they actually depicted this spirit of the British countryside, which they call the Green Man, in the churches. They needed to do that to encourage the pagans to actually come into the Christian church. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gone in there. So you can see this is what people used to worship or used to communicate with. And the number, so psychology calls it pareidolia, which is supposedly some nebulous, appearance of a humanoid face or an animal face in nature. So you'll see the trees will present a humanoid face, or within a bush, or you'll see these faces. Now, that's a really interesting phenomena. But when you see that the frequency of those faces appearing within the ley lines, as opposed to everything outside of the ley lines, it goes against chance. It's
Right.
unbelievable.
Makes
So that's
perfect sense.
it's spirit speaking. It's spirit showing us the ley lines. It's spirit saying, this is significant. Pay attention. There's something to be learned here. And this is something that's been lost. Not to Indigenous
Absolutely.
peoples, but of us. Yeah.
All of us,
And
yeah, because I think we all have these abilities. All of us have them. It's not just certain cultures or certain people that have them. We all have it. We're living in the fallen reality right now, and we all used to have these abilities before the big fall, so to speak. So it's really about reclaiming that. What I want to ask you, we talk about, let's say, slaughterhouses and stuff being on certain ley lines, etc. Would it be accurate to say that the ley lines are kind of neutral? So you can turn them into a positive or a negative effect, or are there positive ley lines and negative ley lines? Or is it just
great
ley
question.
lines? Yeah.
And I get this one a lot. So there are Hartmann and Curry lines, which tend to be quite small. They're roughly 4 to 12 inches. I think that's what Rory says in his book. I really recommend people read Rory Duff's book, by the way, because they'll get, he's mapped it. Like he's got, details on how to find them, what they are, how big they are, as far as dowsing is concerned. So the Hartmann and Curry lines are negatively affecting,
Right.
but only for long periods. So you wouldn't want to sleep within a Hartmann or a Curry line for long periods. And it can take years for it to actually have a negative effect. I really think that most people don't really want to be living in a house that's a crossing of powerful ley lines in general, because it's like a train station for all the different dimensions. You are going to get so much activity in that house if you're in that position. So, I mean, this knowledge needs to be known so people don't build their houses in a crossing of ley lines.
Right, I
Because
agree.
you're not going to sleep well. You're going to have, it's a bit like sleeping over a stream of water that can also disrupt you energetically
Yes.
and drain you. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. So, which has been amazing. That the course before the last one, I'm actually teaching one at the moment, but the March course, I had a huge number of people in the class that actually had a ley or a portal crossing in their backyard. That's how frequent they are. It's amazing. Yeah, it blew my mind. I think that was just a lesson that all those people on that particular month decided to come in, so that it was like, hey, it can happen in your backyard too. Quite incredible. And also surprising number of people with the same names came in. We had multiples of several names in that course, which is also
Wow.
uncanny.
So it's like a duplication, replication. Yeah. Amazing.
So amazing.
So, are you teaching your courses online? Is it just in Australia? Are they live? Are you teaching them online?
I've been blessed with quite a few overseas participants. So the one I'm teaching at the moment works well for people who are in the UK. The one I teach in July will be good for, New Zealand, Canada, America, and Australia as well. It just depends, because UK and America often they don't work well because different times of the day. People all over the world, which has been a blessing, absolute blessing.
Well, you must let us know when you're teaching your courses and we can advertise it and just put links. Are there links and stuff? But I think what we must do is just give me some of the links and stuff, and then I'll put it in the description area of
Thank
the
you, everyone.
of the show. I mean, of the video, and then we can. And if people want to contact you, then they can. Wow, that's amazing to know. And I think it's such important, valuable information right now that we have.
I teach about energetic protection as well, and how to read auras, and also, quite a bit about finding your soul purpose, because I think that's really important at the moment, and negating old soul contracts that no longer serve you, because a lot of people that I have coming into the course have seen, me talking about, Freemasons and that. Freemasons tend to curse their family lines. So some of what I teach is how to negate those old curse energies and get rid of them, which is now is the time to be doing that. We're in a point now, I believe, where we're at the end of I believe we have 26,000 year incarnation cycles where we reincarnate over and over and over again during that period and get to the highest frequency we possibly can. And, many other ancient cultures believe this as well. I believe we've come to the 25,000 year mark. We're coming into 1,000 years of golden age. That's my personal opinion. We are no longer beholden to soul contracts. So what we're doing now is we're finding, well, I'm not beholden to my old karmic debts anymore because I've got to this very high level and I've got to this point. What do I want to do with my time now? How do I want to go into this golden age? What am I going to teach people? Because I think we're still in a war, but we're at that education and healing point at this stage.
Right.
For those that are at a high frequency, we need to show the way for people, like you said before, that are working for the man, that are working for these companies, that are working for the banks, to have the courage to say, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going to find what I'm supposed to be here to do, and I'm going to follow my heart and my gut. Go for it, do what's right.
Right. Absolutely. I'm just writing negating.
So www.6science.com. That's where people can find my, but I'll send you the links, darling.
Yeah,
so
that's fine. Okay. I think that's so important because I think, so people can contact you if they want to help or join your courses or anything. Wow, really, really fascinating and wonderful information as always. And I think we're coming up to an hour mark now. So is there anything that you maybe want to just say in ending off today's show? And I definitely would like to have you back again because I think there's so much that we can still discuss. It'd be great to have you in future as well.
Love to come back, Shirley. Yeah, parting comment would be, don't let the fear porn take over, because that's if you're trying to get to a higher frequency, and that's what we need, more and more people to anchor this very high frequency here on earth. If you're getting caught up in the fear porn, it's going to bring your frequency down. It's exactly what those who are pumping out the fear porn want you to do. You've got to let it go. You've got to be aware of what's going on, but don't let it drag you down. Keep having hope, because we're coming into a golden age. We literally are.
Absolutely.
Times ahead.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you on that. And fear porn is absolutely, there's so many people that are sucked into that right now. Let us not be one of those. And as you say, be aware of what's happening. But at the same time, you've got to keep your frequency high so that you don't get drawn into that. Be one of those that is actually helping someone out of it as opposed to being pulled back into it, because it's very easy to go either way. Right. Yeah. Interesting times indeed, Rachel. Thank you so much. Really, as always, I've enjoyed having beautiful discussion with you. Look forward to having you back again in the future. And everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And we will definitely, this is a recording, so I'm going to put it up pretty soon in the next day or two. not that you know that we're recording, but anyway, it will be going up this week, still on Aquarius Rising Africa. And Rachel, it's such a pleasure having you. Take care, everybody. God bless you all, and we will see you soon.
Thank you.
Cheers, Rachel. Thank you.